for Nvidia, they don't have the capacity at TSMC to make their AI customers happy and make gaming cards. And so they are just making way less gaming cards. Welcome to Broken Silicon, a gaming hardware podcast. I am your host, Exhausted Tom, and today's lead sponsors are CDkeyoffer.com, where you can get Windows 11 Pro, $24 off. Also, JLC PCB, where new people who register can get access to $123 in coupons to save on PCBs. And then Minis Forum and the A1X1 Pro 470 Mini PC. Dan, how are you doing?
Pretty good. How are you doing?
I'm fine now. My brain fully woke up, I'd say, about 2 hours ago as the obligatory
savings.
Yes, the episode because we record on Sundays, that I believe every season, every year we've done the podcast.
Every season.
We have to talk about how much we hate daylight savings time.
Well, the switch, because I prefer daylight savings time.
Oh, yeah, I think add another hour. Let's push it back even farther. Come on.
Yeah, it was an interesting day for me because the 3 days of night a week are finally over, so that was exciting. But it comes at the cost of this day sucking.
Well, and I had extra fun today. I did still wake up a decent amount right away because I had to take a cold shower because our water heater broke.
Oh.
So then we had to go to Best Buy. We called my girlfriend's dad. He's very handy. He knew which things to look at. And then we're like, let's just get he agreed with me. I'm like, well, let's just get a new one. We're not going to have some guy get paid to come out here and check if they can weld something shut, especially when these things cost less than $1,000. But so that's happening next week. Also, I got my car back after getting rear-ended a week or two ago. And
lots
then
of fun stuff.
there's been a lot of fun in the past month for me of little. Oh, and this week we will be fixing our fence after someone I think that works for NES last year, actually, I believe in December, hit our fence. And then they were like, the government of Nashville will pay for this. That took 2 or 3 months to get the check for that.
I forgot.
So we've been doing
that,
all types of stuff. You'd think it'd be over by now, but nope. So I've been dealing with broken water heaters, accidents, people government workers who have hit my fence. It's been a lot of fun.
Yeah, not the NES that's more related to us, the Nintendo Entertainment System, but
no, these would be the people that are probably under or were about to be under investigation for what's happened with the Nashville freeze. So yes, which also, I guess that was January, but I did deal with that. That was really the least annoying thing. I got to brag that my solar was helping us, so I actually almost enjoyed it. But if it would have gone on for we only lost power for 1 day. If that would have went on for 2 days, there would have been much complaining.
Pain in the ass.
Yes, quite a painful pain in the ass. Abstract Realism writes in and says, I'm very belatedly listening to the RTX 50 series die shrink. And after the intro banter about UserBench, I went on there for the lulz once more. And yes, as you discussed, their CPU rankings are complete BS. But oh my God, are their GPU rankings even worse? The first AMD GPU that they would recommend is the 580, and it's in 25th place. By the way, I would hard not recommend that anymore. It's just old. To find a modern RDNA card, you have to go to the second page where there's the 6900 XT in 56th place. Interesting.
Which is almost over half a decade old, because he called this a modern GPU, but I think it should be pointed out, it's an old card at this point. It still works.
6
but
years.
It's old.
That's crazy.
It's getting close to 6 years old.
That'd be like if you were recommending Maxwell when the 6900 XT came out. Like that's how old it is now today. I know. Aren't we old? Which it sucks. But then he goes on, the 9070 XT is on page 8 in rank 354. That's like AMD's best card in years. And between the Nvidia Quadro K1100M from 2014, And Intel HD 3000 desktop V1 at 1.1 gigahertz. Ah, yes, when they broke the gigahertz barrier. Also from 2014. It's just complete nonsense then.
I mean, their recommendations list, like I think we even talked about that on that podcast. It's like it's compiling. It's just complete BS propaganda, like I think you would call it, and also they don't like have a clear system on what they're actually ranking anything on because it's like a mix of price and performance. So like their recommended thing is might as well be meaningless, but
yeah.
Beautiful, beautiful website. I love UserBenchmark.
Well, I also have to say that like eventually you just should stop recommending these GPUs. You can keep them on your website. I mean, I have old benchmark data from like old cards that I'll pull up every now and then to compare to things, whatever. But in terms of actually like ranking things, like
I don't even know how you rank a 580 anymore, really. Like even that's getting too
there's
old.
games it can't run. Like
that
won't boot. It's an issue.
My ranking would be like how I would rank a 580 is it's like it would more be a flow chart. Like, should I get a 580? Yes. Or do you only play GTA Online? If the answer is yes, sure, go for it.
Yes. If you can get it for like $40 or $50, I don't know where it's at right now. But like, there's a reason like with the Moore's Law is Dead GPU ranking chart, which is, on mooreslawsdead.com. Like the way I did it is I had a cutoff. I'm like, there's going to be 10 tiers. The top one, I think I call it ultra enthusiast, and the bottom is bare minimum for what I would consider decent gaming, or not even decent, just like you will play the game and it will feel like you're playing the game. And I have other rows, because new stuff comes out. The 590 is a tier above the 490, which is a tier above older flagships. Mm-hmm. And I made the decision to not just have this expanding list of 13 rows, like ultra bad, like bare minimum, horrible minimum, like, because it's like eventually you just have to cut it off. And like, there's 10 rows. These are, and the bare minimums are the bare minimum. And if you ask me, well, where is this one card? It's not on there. I'm like, well, if it's not like if you can't compare it to a same architecture thing on there, that's because it's just too weak now. Like the Switch isn't on there. I say the Switch is unplayable. Switch 2 is on the bottom tier with Series S. Switch, no, doesn't unplayable.
Say that to all the people playing The Witcher 3 on the Switch now.
Can you believe it can run a game from 2016? Oh my God. But yeah, so yeah, I don't know. UserBench is a complete joke. It seems kind of obligatory that we mention them every like 3 months in some podcasts, but I think don't give them clicks right now. By the way, if anyone's wondering, don't go look at it. Don't give them clicks unless when you do so, you report them to Trustpilot, because genuinely they are misleading people and they should be reported as really a fake website with fake information.
Yeah, I mean, the 4 times a year, I guess we mentioned UserBenchmark. It is really a sort of PSA, I guess, because I see it less and less commonly now on Reddit, but like every time you see people talking about like that on Reddit or other forums, like, or someone new to PC gaming, because I'm pretty sure they like pay to get their pages recommended on Google. Someone's like, new DIYers always bring up UserBenchmark because it's one of those sites that like appears to do head-to-head comparisons of every card in existence, and the reason, so it's like looks really convenient and flashy, but then it's just a series of comments like, dude, don't use UserBenchmark.
Yeah, and like here's an issue too, like just to illustrate what you're saying, if I just Google best GPU for the money, interestingly, Gemini says it's the 9060 XT right now, 16 gigabyte maybe, but if you go past the Gemini recommendation and the frickin' paid for sponsored results, the first thing is Tom's Hardware, which they do regularly. Okay, sure. Tom's Hardware will tell you their opinion. And then you get to PC Gamer, a bunch of Reddit posts, like summarized in like one little box, like which link do you want to click on? And then UL Solutions, and then UserBench. So there's a good chance. And oftentimes when I search for the performance of graphics cards, there's still the number one website at the top. And they just should be deranked. They shouldn't.
And I think you're even doing like too technical of a Googling there, like because I remember doing this when I was like younger, first getting into PC gaming, just like, oh, I don't know, I'm between these two graphics cards, so that instead of like looking up benchmarks, people just Google like 9060 XT versus like 5060 or something. And sure enough, if you Google something like that, UserBenchmark is always at the top of the page.
Yeah, and it just if you give them a click, also report them to Trustpilot and Google, because they are genuinely, it is a fake news website. It's insane. And if you're a novice, it's a well looking, put together website that looks professional. So it's still, like you said, in Tom's Hardware forums, on Reddit, it's still one of the first things people will just send links. And then they always feel bad because they're just like, oh, how dumb you have to be to use this. It's like, well, it's not their fault if they just got into PC gaming.
Yeah, exactly.
Really, it's a disservice being done to them. All right. Speaking of disservices being done to us, let's talk about one of the graphics cards in the next story here. First story here, story number 1. Nvidia preparing RTX 5050 9GB, RTX 5060 12GB, 5070 12GB laptop, and the return of the RTX 3060. Quoting first from TechSpot before getting into the write-up, Nvidia is reportedly developing a second variant of its entry-level GeForce RTX 5050 graphics cards, this time with 9GB of VRAM. Compared to the 8GB configuration on the original model, the company is also said to be working on a new GeForce RTX 5060 variant based on a partially disabled version of actually GB205, the same chip architecture used in the RTX 5070. Now, quoting from Tom's Hardware, multiple manufacturer listings via Huang 514613 indicate an unannounced GeForce RTX 5070 mobile SKU with 12GB of GDDR7, matching the desktop version, ensuring mobile gamers have access to the same capacity. Although, again, that would really be like if it was desktop a 5060 Ti 12GB. Now from Tech Power Up, the Nvidia GeForce RTX 3060, a mid-range GPU, it's an entry GPU now 2 generations old, is reportedly returning to Nvidia's supply this month. According to Chinese board channels, Nvidia is planning a mid-March restock of the Ampere GPU, aligning with earlier rumors that suggested a Q1 2026 revival. Interestingly, it's unclear which version of it that will be reintroduced, whether it will be the original 12GB model with a 192-bit wide memory bus, or the newer 8GB variant, or a mix of both. By the way, let me add here, I can also verify pretty much most of this I've had sources tell me recently is true. So that's a main reason why we're reporting on it, is it's not just coming up from a lot of people that have been right before, but also I've been told much of the same things. So we now have more rumors of NVIDIA's attempt to refresh the RTX 5000 lineup. This time, it is not the currently dead Super Refresh or even the Blackwell Titan, but an assortment of low-end GPUs. These new SKUs, for the most part, are going to be using 3GB GDDR7 modules. We have so that's for the 5070 laptop. And then the 5060 12GB is reminiscent of that 2060 KO, which was a heavily cut down version of a bigger die before. I believe that maybe the 2080 die or something. This time, the 5070 die will be heavily cut down, meaning that it is not probably using 3GB modules, unless I'm missing something. They're just leaving a 192-bit bus and cutting down the CUDA cores substantially. Then there is the 5090 9GB, which still cuts the memory bus to just 96-bit, but still gets 5% more bandwidth than the 5050 GDDR6 because it is using faster GDDR7 modules. Perhaps without a super refresh, NVIDIA has so much 3GB GDDR7 that this swap makes some business sense. It is a shame they don't just have enough to give us the full 5050 12GB, or at least that they're not generous enough to let us have it. In laptop, the 5070 is also getting boosted 12GB, but it's still a 206 card. The comparison between the 12GB 5070, 5060 could be fun though. But what to do with all the GDR6 when even 5050 is being moved to the newest memory? Well, why not just keep making Ampere? Oh yeah, so this is Carbon Cries right up here saying, why not just keep making the 3060 instead of bothering with this? I don't know. I guess what I'll also add at the end to this, because I think this is where, and I talked about this on my latest live stream, people are like, why is any of this existing? And I think it's pretty simple for all of them. They're just all different answers, basically. 8GB isn't enough anymore. So they're now moving to 12GB for the laptop chip. So that's that one. That's why they would do that. I also do think what Carbon Cry wrote is probably true. They might actually, believe it or not, people, have a pile of 3GB GDDR7 memory available that they have to start using on something. And they might realize, too, that eventually they will not have a lot of GDDR6 around. That's going to get old in a year or two. They tend to sell their 50 series for very long times. So they're just preparing the 5050 9GB SKU for that reason. And also, they don't want to give it 12GB because then it might honestly outperform a desktop 5068 gigabyte. And so they're trying to give it the exact same bandwidth as the GDDR6 model. It's probably pretty arbitrary segmentation, but that's what they're doing. And a final note on all of this. I think people need to understand something here. This kind of seems to confirm my leaks that actually the bottleneck is not RAM at Nvidia. It isn't. It's the silicon, because they might just have, extra RAM, but not the extra silicon, hence all these weird models. I think this pretty much confirms it. Because again, there's this conception out there that like it's always RAM right now. No, for Nvidia, they don't have the capacity at TSMC to make their AI customers happy and make gaming cards. And so they are just making way less gaming cards, effectively pausing some of the larger models in production. And I guess, but they still have plenty of RAM to put on them. So,
yeah, because I mean, seeing them put GDDR7 into a 5050 is, confusing if RAM is their big limitation right now. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. Like for me, I really hate that Nvidia does this weird crap with their naming all the time. Like particularly with the 5059 gigabyte, like the 5060 12 gigabyte is kind of a different card to the 5060, but like, I mean, at least it's an upgrade. I'm gonna guess from what we'll see, and like maybe it will be a slightly better overclocker. I don't know. But the 5059 gigabyte, I'm very. I mean, it's kind of just a different card if it has a quarter of the bus disabled, and I'm very curious to see how its performance lines up against the 5050 we have right now, because I feel like in theory you should get pretty similar levels of performance, but with that limited bus width, I feel like you might get weird outliers in performance. And I guess to be fair to them, like I don't really know how you market this alongside the currently existing 5050, or like if the best thing would just be like the 5050 question mark edition, because I wouldn't be surprised if it ends up being a little bit weaker right now, or probably a little stronger, I guess, because it's higher bandwidth, but also maybe ages a bit better because it has that little bit of extra RAM, although I'm not sure if the extra gigabyte is really going to be enough to make a huge difference. But
I think it would actually help. You have to remember that like even when devs are like programming their, crap mode, potato mode graphics to be able to fit in 8 gigabytes moving forward, having that one extra gigabyte will provide a bit more of a buffer to swap in RAM textures in and out of the DDR. Like I found like in a lot of games, like I remember back when I had a 3070 still, even with like Battlefield 2042, frame rates would start to get pretty bad after like a hour of playing. I'm like, that's weird. It was only using 7 gigabytes of RAM and Ultra and 4K. And it's because over time, as more assets keep moving, it actually needs a little more than 8 gigabytes. I do think there will be edge cases where this definitely helps, actually. I do think there will. How big of a difference? I don't know. But I do think it does honestly future-proof the card a little bit, because devs will be building their games around barely fitting in 8 gigabytes for years for their lowest setting, I believe. And that extra gigabyte means that if it barely fits in 8, it actually comfortably fits in yours. It probably will give you better minimums. I would guess. I'm not sure, of course.
Yeah. I mean, I guess that the 5059 gigabyte will probably end up being a better offering than the 5050, but like,
if it's the same price, it is.
True. But I really do just hate seeing like these weird cards that are like in some ways better, in some ways worse than what already exists on the market, even if
it's absurdly stupid. It should have 12 gigabytes. It should be called the 5050 Ti or 5050 Super. The 5060 12 gigabyte should be called the 5060 Ti Super, and it should either be the standard one with 3 gigabytes and faster RAM, or the 192-bit with, which by the way, I'm going to correct myself. I did misread. No, I believe they're disabling the bus down to 128-bit and using 3 gigabyte modules for the 5060 12 gigabyte on desktop. Just so you know, like that's what I just reread it. It's not that it's 192-bit from the 5070.
Yeah.
That's just so that again, that tells you the only reason they would do this is they have extra 3 gigabyte RAM.
Oh yeah, that's the only way to read it. And
yeah, I just want to correct myself there.
I guess I suppose for once though, props to Nvidia for being a little less stingy with RAM, although I do think it is funny how, especially with the 59 gigabyte, how quote unquote not stingy they're being, where it's just like we're giving you the absolute minimum amount more RAM we could give you with this card versus what we already have. And then with like, to me, I do think like the existence of the 5070 12 gigabyte for laptop is good. 5060 12 gigabyte better than what we have right now. And the 3060 being revived, I guess I kind of get, because like I think it does offer that like minimum level of performance of like quote unquote recent cards from Nvidia to come out now. Like the 3060, I guess, still works if it's a 1080p card, and it has, assuming it's the 12 gigabyte one they're reviving, it has enough RAM.
Yeah, and I guess I'm sure there's some people too who would say, well, what the heck's going on? Why a 5059 gigabyte and a 5060 12 gigabyte before a 5080 Super? And the answer is because the die is half as big. Like, this is what Nvidia has decided to do. They're going to pump out tiny 5050 dies and 5060 dies. And I guess they probably saved up some drag yields of the 5070 for the 12 gigabyte 5060, to be honest. Like, they probably were saving up like 5% garbage yields for that. And they're not prioritizing trying to make it work as a 5070 or higher, just because they want to use as little capacity as possible. And they're in like kind of like 6500 XT mode, where they're like, we're going to use as little capacity from TSMC as possible for gamers. And what that means is no 5080 dies, definitely no 5090 dies, because they're way too big. We can make more. We just want to have something there, so if someone's card breaks, they're able to buy Nvidia, because they believe a lot of people will just buy the most reasonable Nvidia card. And if that's a 5060, well, people wait for prices to go down. That's what they will do. That's what Nvidia is calculating.
Well, and don't forget, though, Tom,
they're treating GPUs like a commodity, like RAM. They're not treating it like you're actually differentiating.
And don't forget, though, Tom, with the power of AI, the 5060 12 gigabyte is basically a 4090, so you're set.
Oh, yeah, that's true, though. I haven't thought about that. Techno writes in, why did Nvidia make a Kepler version of the GT 1030, but not a Maxwell version? More interestingly, why didn't Nvidia make a Pascal or Maxwell version of the 1650 during the pandemic to help supplies? Both 16 and 28 nanometer were cheaper, and die size. No, not really. I mean, 12 nanometer was just better 16. That was so I don't think that would have helped that much there. I mean, look, I left this question in, even though it's asking about older graphics cards, just like, why do they sometimes do like a weird architecture version of this versus whatever of that that's more recent? And it's like, I don't know. Maybe they had a bunch of dies left over in some warehouse. Like, when AMD restarted Polaris production during COVID, if you remember all those rumors.
Oh, yeah.
They didn't restart production.
They just put out old dies, right?
Yeah. From one of my best sources, I was told they had something like 300,000-400,000 of those laying in a warehouse that were just still in a warehouse. And they saved it for when they might need it. And I mean, maybe this is where the Steam Machine comes from. Maybe there's this warehouse of 7600 dies that they sold to Valve. We'll talk about that later in the episode. And so maybe they had a warehouse of old Kepler products, but not Maxwell. That's why these companies do these things, is they're not making new stuff. Usually they might be making new 3060s. I'm not sure about that, but usually it's just, some old thing they happen to have and they didn't have another thing.
Yeah. I mean, that makes sense. Like when you see companies just put out a new version of like some old architecture, like there's a good chance it's probably because it's just like, well, this is the convenient thing for us to put out right now, or this is what we can put out. We're not going to put a ton of legwork in to making a new product based on an old design or something.
Ever feel like Microsoft is playing around with you with the prices they expect you to pay for their software? Well, that's how I feel, or at least how I felt years ago before I started using CDkeyoffer.com. That's right, this piece of content is sponsored by CDkeyoffer.com, a fantastic place to get reasonably priced Microsoft Office and operating system software. They're authentic keys that are delivered very quickly once you purchase them. And you know, when it comes to the Office software, by the way, once you link that to your Microsoft account, it's just there in your downloads. You can get a new desktop, a new laptop, and just log in with your Microsoft account whenever you boot it up for the first time and then download it, and it's done. And there's no need to constantly rebuy or get subscriptions to, monthly fees for Office software. You can just get it once, link it to your account, and then you just have it. And you get a couple, you can jump between different devices as well. And that is what I've been doing for a very long time, since CDkeyoffer.com started sponsoring Moore's Law is Dead. And so if you want to get some of these products for reasonable prices and show support for Moore's Law is Dead, check them out through the links below. Remember, even just clicking on those links helps the channel a ton, and it helps you save money, of course, if you use offer code BROKENSILICON to save 25% on the software on their website, in addition to the already marked down prices they have. And then, of course, you can also use Die Shrink to save 3% on everything else on the website. Once again, support Moore's Law is Dead by checking out CDkeyoffer.com today. All right. Let us now move on to story number 2. Valve hopes Steam Machine launches in 2026, but then reconfirms it will launch this year. Quoting from The Verge, earlier today, Valve wrote that we hope to ship Steam Machine in 2026, which sounded like quite a downgrade from earlier promises of an early 2026 launch. It seemed like the company was quietly delaying the product yet again. Valve didn't immediately respond to a request for comment. But after we initially published this article about Valve's post, Valve PR representative Casey Aitishan Boyle told Verge that nothing has actually changed on our end. Valve has also updated the blog post to state that we will be shipping all 3 products this year. So the frame and the controller. So yes, in a Radeon-style gaffe, yet again, Valve created a negative story when there was no story to begin with. After already cooling hopes for a true early 2026 launch off of their widely anticipated new hardware, they decided to further muddy the waters. And to no one's surprise, the public took their hope as all but confirming the plans for the 2026 availability died due to memory supply disruption. Yes, the working title for one of the first subjects for this on YouTube for this Broken Silicon was Steam Machine canceled ? And that was before I saw their responding. So you agree we hope to launch it this year? Doesn't it sound like they're basically confirming it's launching late or next year? I mean,
to me, yeah, that almost sounds like a was it a mistake that we announced this thing? To me, yeah.
But then they said it will. And so, unlike Radeon, Valve's response was swift and clear, at least reconfirming a 2026 launch. Though, interestingly, they did not say first half of 2026 anymore. Perhaps that was the strategy. Make people think Steam Machine is pushed back a year, then reassure everyone, well, inadvertently creating wiggle room that now it might be launching during the holiday season instead of during early summer. So yeah, what did you think about all of this, Dan? This caused a lot of discussion online.
Well, I am kind of in the camp, like, if they can't get it out this year, I kind of feel like it would need a redesign, because I mean, I think I've said this maybe on the last Broken Silicon or some previous podcast we have recorded. Like, the fanfare for the Steam box to me really does feel like it's just because, like, there is a feeling in the PC community that Valve can do no wrong. And I think Valve's a great company, but like it's already a relatively weak thing. So like to me
it is a low end mobile GPU on 6 nanometer when we will have 3 nanometer consoles in a year and a half from now. It is a 3-year-old. Wait, right? 3 year? Because that would be 2023. Yeah, 3-year-old low-end mobile GPU on 6 nanometer. It is very old stuff.
Yeah, so to me, like, I really do just feel like the positive reception, like, if any other company were putting out the Steam box or Steam Machine, sorry, I don't think people would really be that into it. I mean, to be fair, like, well, yeah, of course, but like, To me, it really is just the fact that it's Valve and that it's like a weld. I mean, I think like it looks nice. I guess that there's also that, but yeah, like there's a reason I think this would piss a bunch of people off, because like the 2026 is the window where this can launch, where like the
Frankly,
hardware
it should have
is
launched
still
last year.
Yeah, I know. I was going to say, like, this is like the year, the window where it can still launch with relevance. And like, frankly, even if this thing launched in like 2024, it would have been like a relatively weak device in 2024. Like,
yeah, that's the funny thing is if it would have launched 2024, I still think it should cost like $500. I don't think no, they could have charged more, because even by then, no, you're competing with a $700, at least at first it was, PS5 Pro that is like 50% faster or more. Like, I mean, this is ridiculous, so the time is definitely ticking on this thing. I've started to call it the Xbox, I guess now Helix, I used to say Magnus, the Xbox Helix S, and what Magnus is the Helix X, because that's what this is, people. This is a way to get all the people pissed at Microsoft to go from their Series S, which is like 70% of Series sales, by the way. Xbox Series X is only like 30%. Get the majority of those people, instead of going to another Windows ecosystem, to go to Valve, or at least some of them, right when they're all mad at Microsoft. If you launch this too close to Magnus, it's just too old. If this launches, well, Mark Cerny's like, this is the PlayStation 6 handheld, it's $499 or whatever he does. I don't think anyone's going to care. This is the year it has to happen now. They have to eat the cost now. And I wonder, though, if it's not about cost for the RAM, if they literally can't get it. That is what I continue to wonder.
Yeah, and I guess for me, like, more on the subject of this specific story, like, I'm glad they put out a declarative statement. Don't worry, the Steam Machine is still coming out this year. But it does worry me a little. It does confuse me a little bit. Like, what the initial statement was, like, we're hoping to. I mean, I guess it could have just been poor wording, but that is a bit concerning to me. And in some ways, like, I don't know. I am getting less and less confident in the launch of this thing, even with that declarative statement, to try to walk back the "we hope it comes out this year" statement, because they also, like, in the reassurance, they said nothing on our end has really changed to, or I'm paraphrasing, but like nothing behind the scenes.
Then why
has changed.
Is it March and it's not out? You said early 26. Once you get to April, I don't think you're early. Once you get to May, you're not an early.
There's been a lot of wishy-washy stuff with them, and like, despite their declarations that nothing has changed since the Steam Machine has been announced, like, there's no way to read this news and like the fact, like what you said, like, we still don't have a release date, we still don't have a price. There's no way to read all of that news and think nothing has changed, because why the hell would they have announced it back then? It said it's coming out early next year, if we still know nothing about it, and we're already like almost a fifth of the way into the year.
Yeah. I guess, you saying all that, I agree. I'm getting more and more concerned and less confident in how this is gonna play out. Because I remember when they showed it, I'm like, this thing's awesome. When RAM was nearly free in 2025, I first looked at the BOM. I'm like, dude, this could be $450 if they really went for it and even still make a profit. Yeah. And now I'm here like, maybe it'll be $600 and they can't even get the RAM. And the guys,
really,
you gotta launch this thing.
Yeah, really happy with that $160 purchase I made back in June last year.
Yeah, me too. All right. Well, let us now move on to the next story. Story number 3. AMD Zen 7 pictured in renders. Yep. After leaking pretty much all there is to know about the Zen 7 lineup, there was nowhere else to go for Moore's Law is Dead than, well, what it actually looks like. Following a first general outline that we leaked last November, we can now bring some updates and renders to help everyone visualize the CPUs that are years from being shown on stage during an AMD keynote. With Zen 7, AMD is adding a lot more CCDs into the mix, actually. Instead of a single consumer CCD, they are splitting into high-performance, large 16-core Silverton and a much smaller efficiency and economy-focused Silver King. And then, of course, there's the Steamboat 3D stacked 33-core Mega chiplet that will be used in server and not for consumers. Now, Silver King, the 8-core model, is a pretty great idea when you think about it. It will stay in the mainstream gaming as a mainstream gaming option. Having a dedicated 8-core CCD solves the headache AMD was going to have with disabling a ton of 12-core Zen 6 CCDs. That's probably something they realized as they are finalizing their segmentation plans for Zen 6. They're like, do we really need even 6 cores? That's half of a 2-nanometer die on an ultra mature node. It makes a ton of sense that they will be doing this once they move to 16 cores, because there's just no way around it. I mean, if you go on Amazon right now, most of the best sellers are 8 cores or less, actually. And there should still be supply of 8 cores, I believe, for gamers.
Yeah.
Well into 2030. And I think AMD thinks that as well. Further, this 8-core model is a sensible option for laptop chips. Just like Medusa Point and Halo, their Grimlock 7 counterparts will allow adding some desktop CCDs, but not the 16 cores. They will add the 8 cores to boost the Point up to, I believe it was like 22 cores or something like that. I think it is something probably around there. And I think boost the Halo to like at least 36 cores by using 2 8-core CCDs. What this allows AMD to do by having 2 consumer options, a 16 and an 8-core, is they can tweak the 16 core to go for a 7 gigahertz or higher, pump it full of voltage. Who cares? It's going to desktop and probably Threadripper, if I had to guess. And then they can take the 8-core and tweak the silicon's voltage to maybe target something like 6 or 5 gigahertz, use substantially less energy, take up almost half the die space. That way it's both perfect for laptop or for budget desktop, where they will probably make them 65-watt parts. So yeah, that was the majority of it. I mean, the big deal is check out the video, of course. You can see pictures of what these things look like. But the biggest takeaway, besides just saying, ooh, there's cool pictures, is now that they're visualized, like really conveying to people, like both how big the 16-core chiplets and their big IO die is, but then also just how tiny that budget one is. But yeah, so what did you think, Dan?
Yeah, I mean, we discussed a lot, like as they're getting into like the next, I guess, big step up from the 8-core CCDs, like what will happen to 8 cores. And yeah, I mean, this answers the question. Like you and I speculated for a while, like, will 12-core be the new 8-core? Will there be 10-core parts? Like, and no, I mean, I think there will just continue to be 8 cores, which makes a lot of sense, because 8 cores really are still enough cores for most video games. Like I still think like you might get a boost in performance like with like 12 cores on a single CCD, because there's no penalty for the 2 CCDs communicating with each other anymore. But 8 cores is still good enough, and I think the market is going to want 8 cores for the foreseeable future. And AMD is getting really popular with their CPUs now. This design that they started off with Ryzen, like at a certain point that, they've outgrown it. Like it was a very lean approach, but, diversifying into more core designs just makes sense at this point, because like you're not going to disable a 16-core CCD to 8 cores.
not in an appreciable quantity. Like,
yeah.
There will probably be some 8 cores that are disabled from 16 at some point for something, but that's going to be like drag yields they saved up for years.
That's not going to be their high volume, like.
And 8 cores are their high volume, so they know they need a economical way to make tens of millions of the 8 cores, because that's what most people will probably still be buying.
Yeah, I guess I am curious. Do you think they're going to change their lineup and like what they position as like the R5, R7, is it R9 now, or like do you think the R5s are going to be 8 cores now, or I'm just
Gintech
curious.
writes, do you think with the increased core count on Zen 6, AMD will use the opportunity, if yields are good enough, to phase out Ryzen 5 CPUs on desktop, much like they did so far by now with
I forgot about Ryzen 3s.
I know. Effectively making 8-core, $360 plus Ryzen 7's the entry point going forward, leaving us with Ryzen 7 9s and I guess 11s or who knows for the new core counts. No, I doubt it. I think they know they have a good thing going. And I would suspect I don't know what they'll do with Zen 6. Because I would make the argument just from a business perspective that what they should do is have the 24 core be like the 960X and then the 20 core be the 950X. So you add one more tier of Ryzen 9.
Yeah.
You see, so instead of 16 cores with the 950, you get 20. And I would still probably make the 900 be 12 cores because I'm sorry, 12 cores with X3D at 7 gigahertz is going to be a monster. And I would kind of recommend to them just keep that actually as the 900 and just drop it down to like $500 and then make the 10 core yields, which there'll probably be a lot of. That can be the 800 for 400. And the 8 core can be the 700 now instead of 10 cores for the 800, nomenclature, and drop that down to like there, probably. And then I don't know what you do with the 600. Do you, go with 6 cores still? I don't know how many would need to be disabled there. Maybe you honestly just use Medusa point yields that are like 2 plus 2 plus 2 for the 6. I don't know.
I really don't know. I'm curious
so I would
if you'll
up for some of them. I would bump up the core. Maybe I would make, maybe I would make the Ryzen 5 8 cores, I guess, for 300. I probably would do that, but I would have a 10 core 800 or something. Yeah. There.
Yeah.
Or 700 and 800 X3. Yeah. So yeah, I probably do the, whatever we want to call it, 10600X would be 8 cores for 300. The 10700X would be 10 cores for like 350, 400, whatever they do. And then the 800X3 would be 10 cores with Vcache. But I'd still think a single unified CCD with 12 cores is going to be so much better than the existing 12 core. You could probably just keep the 900 tier as 12 core, but bump up the 950 to 20 and add a new 960 with 24 cores. Because once you get to 24 cores above 6 gigahertz, you're talking about something that's HEDT class here.
Yeah,
you can charge more than 700.
Yeah, and for me, I think if they like added, what would it be, like 2 to 4 core, like move the tiers up, I guess, like add 2 more cores to each tier. Like I don't know. I think that would be kind of nice to like see like the 10 core positioned as like the new version of the 8 core, and I think kind of would make sense in the current environment where like where back in the day when 8 cores was first being pushed, it's like 8 cores are more than enough for gaming. 6 cores are good for gaming. And I think like now where we're going to is like 10 or 12 cores would be like more than enough for gaming. 8 cores is the new 6 core. So that would be good to see that as like the 600. And then with like what you do with 6 cores, I am curious, like you said, like maybe it won't even be based on Silverton. Like I don't know. I'm
Silver King. I know it's confusing. King is the small one.
Sorry, yes. Silver King. Like I with such a small die, I'm curious how many they would even need to disable the 6 cores. Like if I would assume they'll still launch a 6 core something to desktop, but like if that could just be, like you said, like a repurposed like laptop thing that they release late into the cycle even. But
yeah, we'll have to see. I don't know. I continue to think that at some point they need like cheap monolithic APUs to take up any R3 or budget R5 stuff. What would that be now? I mean, they've got plenty of options. I mean, there's Kraken, and there's Gorgon Point, which now includes the successor to Kraken. I don't know why Kraken got its own name and wasn't just Strix Point 3, like the third version of the die. But like that's 4 plus 4. You could easily take that and just disable 2 big cores, or I think they can do this, 1 big core and 1 little core, and just take those Kraken yields and just sell them as 6 cores for $200, and just not, it's not Zen 6, but it's a 6 core for substantially less than the 8 core above it. I feel like at some point they should start doing stuff like that. Like maybe they don't have any, Ryzen 3s or 6 cores, but when Bumblebee comes out, which I think is on N4C, I think it is. So that's interesting that Zen 6 might get a 4 nanometer variant. Take that. That's a two Zen 6, two Zen 6C, two Zen 6 low power. Sell that for like 150 or something on its little, tablet die. Like that's probably where this has to go moving forward, because I'm sorry that, using N2X, N2P, these things are going to be really expensive, and it just starts to make less and less sense to make anything with 6 cores or less. But I still think they would eventually, they have to make the 8 core a Ryzen 5. I think so. Carbon Cry writes in, Tom, one point in your Zen 7 video confused me. It was the binning of Silverton and Silver King. Binning is something that happens after a chip is made. It gets tested in memory on various parameters, defects, specific voltage, max stable clocks, blah, blah, blah. The chips then get sorted into different bins. This cannot happen between Silverton and Silver King, as you seem to imply. It seems more that Silver King is designed to run at a lower voltage. There are many methods: body biasing, using different cell library mixing, putting different parameters, and when compiling soft design into physical design. Of course, manual circuit optimization or rework. Did you mean those design stage differences, or just that Silver King will be bin to produce a super efficient bin dedicated to laptop, but there aren't design differences? No, and I talked to Carbon Cry offline about this first, just to make sure he understood. I think he seemed to think I was saying that what they'll do with Silver King, the 8-core model, is been leaky to desktop, non-leaky to laptop, and that's it. There's no difference. And it's like, no. I said to him, no, it's both. I think they probably will tune Silver King for lower voltage and clocks, and then they will tune the 16 core model for crazy high clocks. But then in addition to that, they would also take the hyper efficient versions of that for laptop and the less efficient versions of that for desktop, like they already do, where like Threadripper just gets better bins than desktop. So no, I don't know if I explicitly said it in the video. I do genuinely also think just at a base level, the 8 core is probably going to be clocked lower because its voltage curve and silicon will be tweaked to be lower from the get-go. AI generated fish writes in, if or when the AI bubble bursts, will they change horrible AI naming of products? Also, how will the AI bubble change the timeline and marketing pricing for Medusa Halo? I mean, look, if it bursts before Medusa Halo launches, Medusa Halo has access to decent amounts of RAM. It will make it cheaper. I think we all know that. But will these companies change their AI naming? I don't know. If it's a new series, maybe, but guys, RDNA 4. It was named after the DNA craze in like 2018 with Elizabeth Holmes and all that nonsense. That's why. And it's still called RDNA. So don't you agree, Dan? They're going to keep the AI naming probably until they start over the naming after like the 1000 series.
I don't know. Like AMD switches up its naming on stuff so often. I really wouldn't be surprised if we only get... I would be a little surprised if it was only 2 generations, but I could see it only being 3 generations of AI naming before they say, "Oop, the AI thing is done. We need to do a rebrandion thing."
Yeah, and I don't know what that would be though, because I don't know what the next tech mega cycle will be, except for something connected to AI. Anyways, like let's say the AI bubble pops later this year. And, there's all this backlash against big tech and legislation is put in place by people who get elected, later this year or 28 and then blah, blah, blah. I still think the next tech mega cycle would be a robotic cycle in like 2030 or 2031. I don't know what the next one would be. And it's not like they're going to call it like the GLP-1 CPU, because that's like the other big technology changing the world. And they're not going to call it that. So I don't know what else to call it.
If only we would have gotten CRISPR branding with AMD at some point.
Well, you said that was starting to become a thing where because you work, frankly, on things I don't even. Yeah, but like you work with a lot of things involving DNA and DNA programming. And you're like, did you say they shoehorn CRISPR in like they used to shoehorn other?
Oh yeah, with research, a lot of the time, like. The hot new technology kind of gets shoehorned into every paper, even when it doesn't really make sense or like add that much to the paper. But
yeah. So that again, that happens everywhere. Buzzwords are put into everything everywhere in every industry. It's not just, computers.
And with like the bioinformatics becoming like really more and more essential in like biology research. And bioinformatics is still really important. I'm not trying to say bioinformatics isn't important. There was a very funny period where everything on bioinformatics had to like talk about Moore's law for some reason, which I thought was fun.
You told me about that. That is funny. All right. Let us now move on to story number 4. First, FSR 4.1 analysis provided by Ancient Gameplays. Quoting Ancient Gameplays from his video, FSR 4.1 DLL has been leaked, and from my understanding, they grabbed the file from most likely the yet-to-be-released 26.3.1 drivers, and they actually extracted the file that will make the drivers inject FSR 4 in games that don't have FSR 4. So this isn't really complicated, but it is definitely a trade-off after testing. Some parts are better, some parts are worse when compared to FSR Redstone, and well, guys, that's all for today's video. And so, yep, it would not be a fortnight without some real Radeon shenanigans again, would it? This time, someone got their hands on pre-release drivers and got FSR 4.1 DLL out of them. For comparison, FSR Redstone currently uses 4.0.3, allowing a friend of the channel, Fabio, to test the two out. However, unsurprisingly, there's no definitive answer to which is better, as is now common with minor revisions, like we've seen with DLSS 4.5, where some things were better while other things were worse. They just tend to optimize, maybe make a different trade-off. Usually it's sharpness versus temporal stability. We'll have to wait for FSR 4.5, it seems at least, for any expectation of a serious improvement. Yes, and by the way, Carbon Cry in the write-up put someone in quotes. We can. I talked about this on the live stream. This was a question people had for me last week, but like, is it probable that there's like engineers at AMD intentionally leaking this? And by now my answer is yes.
Yeah,
I think yes. If this happened twice, someone there is pissed about how management is handling FSR, gating it away from RDNA 3, not releasing things soon, and they're probably just dropping it for people.
Yeah, that makes sense. I suppose.
But I don't know if you have anything else to say about this. There is a new 4.1 coming sooner than expected. It does seem like even if they're dragging their feet, letting RDNA 3.5, let alone 3 or 2, which apparently could use it, like they still don't seem to be officially planning to bring FSR 4 to those older architectures. But I will say bringing 4.1 out this quickly after Redstone, it does seem like they are trying to innovate faster than FSR 3, which was painfully slow.
Yeah, for me, there's not too much to say. I mean, this seemed like a relatively minor revision to me. I mean, like looking at Ancient Gameplay's video for it, I did like to see that there was that added temporal stability in the new version of it for the most part. Like, I think I think it's become a significantly less of an issue now, but like especially early versions of FSR, that there was like FSR had a major problem with shimmering early on.
I agree, yeah.
And I guess it's still present there to some extent, but like looking at the Resident Evil Requiem things, like it was a little heartening even to like watch seeing like the comparisons to the old version, like him zooming in on things to like point out the shimmer, where like if you were like looking at Spider-Man 1 and older versions of FSR, sometimes it was like, wow. Sometimes it looked like a mirage.
Came to Deep Rock Galactic when we used to play that, just shimmering all over the space station if you were below 4K at all. Any resolution below 4K, just shimmering everywhere.
Yeah, and I'm sure it's common for most people, but like that type of instability to me stands out really prominently amongst other types of like other types of artifacts you get from these upscaling techniques like ghosting, where they can point out ghosting that still exists in some segments in games, but I usually think it's like in motion it's probably not that noticeable. But yeah, to me it like more or less looked pretty similar aside from like a few things that he pointed out. And I don't know, I did think it was a little weird looking. I don't know if you agree with me. It could have just been like the compression of what I was watching on there were sections on it that, to me, 4.1, the color looked a little bit more washed out, but that could have just been, I don't know, some weird artifact of YouTube or whatever I was watching it on.
You never know with that. I think what we can say is this is early and an unofficial version of it. Who can really say without like a full breakdown from Hardware Unboxed or Digital Foundry or Ancient Gameplays when it's in multiple games?
Yeah.
Which actually that perfectly segues us to the next one, because so far this story, what we're about to talk about, another limitation of it is that it really is only in one game, and one game that has issues, although it looks amazing with using upscaling or with how it maps some things. So it really proves that you can't really be 100% sure of how good something is from how one game uses it. But yeah, that brings us to story number 5. This piece of content is brought to you by JLC PCB. Innovation starts with an idea, and JLC PCB helps you bring your ideas to life. With their one-stop manufacturing service, you can get everything you need in one place, whether that's PCB fabrication, SMT assembly, 3D printing, and CNC machining. And yes, from rapid prototyping to full production, they handle every step with precision, speed, and at a reasonable cost, especially when it comes to their 6-layer PCBs. On that last point, their 6-layer PCBs allow fast, clean routing and avoid the struggle of squeezing signals onto their usual 2 or 4 layer boards. More routing means more freedom and faster development, fewer redesigns, and therefore quicker project completions. Spend less time fighting routing limits and more time building the actual project. And 6-layer PCBs are usually expensive, but JLC PCB offers one of the most affordable industry prices. So whether you're a maker, an engineer, or a global hardware company, JLC PCB empowers you to turn your ideas into a reality faster and smarter. Support Moore's Law is dead through the link below. Yes, just clicking on the link below helps the channel a ton, but obviously if you need their services, you can also get a really great price on 6-layer PCBs as well if you follow the directions and use the offer codes and coupons below. So please support Moore's Law is dead at JLC PCB today. PSSR 2 launches to PS5 Pro, quoting first from Sony and then from Digital Foundry. We've been hard at work on a new version of PSSR, which takes a very different approach to not only the neural network, but also the overall algorithm. We are happy to share that Resident Evil Requiem, shipping today, is the first title to use this more advanced PSSR, which is helping to keep both frame rate and high image quality at the same time. The algorithm and neural network used in the new PSSR stem from our Project Amethyst partnership with AMD. Through AMD's FSR upscaling technology, PC gamers have already seen the benefits of our collaboration, not on RDNA 3. We look forward to more news in March when multiple existing games upgrade to the improved PSR. Gosh, I almost melted down there. I am tired today, people. I really am. There will also be a system software update at that time. Selecting enhanced PSSR image quality in the settings on PS5 Pro will allow you to experience the new PSSR with any PS5 Pro games that currently have the first edition of it. That surprised me a lot, by the way. They were able to do that. Quoting now from Digital Foundry. So my generic appraisal here is that it is pretty similar to FSR 4, but it seems to hold on to information perhaps for not the same amount of time or in different areas of the screen. Hence why it doesn't show ghosting in the same places that FSR 4 does. But at the same time, I think it shows a little more aliasing and doesn't complete lines as well with aliasing, anti-aliasing. So from the 2 versions of FSR 4 to a third, Sony seems to have confirmed there is a strong link between FSR 4 and the new version of PSSR. With PSSR 1, we did see a lot of differences from FSR 4, but it seems there are fewer differences now and AMD's AI upscaling. But if PSSR 2 and FSR 4 share the broad architecture and PSSR 2 is for a hardware without FP8 AI acceleration, we see yet again that FSR 4 can certainly be ported to RDNA 3. It wouldn't probably run as fast, though, as even a 7900 XTX just has 250 int 8 tops to the PS5 Pro's 300. But I don't know. FP8 is clearly not a hard requirement. And like, so what? If it ran at 20, if you got a 20% boost instead of a 30% boost in frame rates, who cares? I mean, it can clearly run on RDNA 3. What do you think, Dan?
PSSR 2, and the problem is, though, at a certain point, I'll just be talking about, like, Resident Evil Requiem. Yeah, I mean, it looks really good to me based on what I saw in those videos. And I don't know, the PS5 Pro, like enhanced versions of the game versus like the base model PS5, I just thought looked substantially better. And
yeah, it's great. It's amazing looking.
Just watching that Digital Foundry video did I make me want to get Resident Evil Requiem, although I'm probably going to hold off a little bit just because I want to finish other games I'm playing right now first. But I'm very excited for that game. And yeah, I don't know, PSSR and the ray tracing on Resident Evil all look great, honestly, in all of the versions to me. And I don't know, to some extent, like, I mean, yeah, I guess like DLSS is probably the best looking version, but or best looking technology in that game. But I think they all look great. And yeah, bring FSR 4 to RDNA 3. Come the hell on.
Yeah. So you haven't played Resident Evil 9 yet?
Not yet, no.
No, I did get it, and I got it for PS5 Pro so that I could look at PSSR 2. And I have to say, yeah, I mean, this is the best looking game, I think, on that console. I guess The Last of Us Part 2 probably still comes close in many ways. But the lighting this is like, I guess I haven't played that many ray traced games on PS5, surprise. But I'd say this is like the first ray traced game on PS5 Pro.
The lighting looks really good from what I've seen in those videos.
I feel like you kind of have a 4080 here. Like, it's crazy. Not saying it's as strong as your 4080. Calm down. But
every comment will be that now, Tom.
But like, like, what other games have I really like? Spider-Man looks good, but it's very restrained use of ray tracing. It's smartly restrained. Like, they only use it where you notice it, and therefore it performs. You can play in 4K 120 on PS5 Pro, but it doesn't feel like when I've played. I'm trying to think of like which ray traced games. Like, I don't know, even like Minecraft RTX or something where it's like, whoa, this changes the experience. This game I play in the ray tracing mode. It's like a locked 60 hertz. That's fine, especially for a game where you move slower, actually. And it feels truly like a next gen ray tracing game on console. Again, you know, Alan Wake 2, which I've played a little bit because it came out on PlayStation Plus for free on PlayStation Plus. It has a ray tracing mode, is so not worth playing. It like destroys the frame rate. It's just not worth it at all. This works. This is very impressive work here done by the devs who made Resident Evil 9.
Yeah. For me, just seeing like the 120 hertz mode versus, or for PS5 Pro, like the 120 hertz mode versus the 60 hertz mode, like it goes from like a very, very good looking game at 120 hertz. I mean, still probably one of the best looking games on the console, to like, this is a graphical showcase for the PS5 Pro. And especially with a game that, with the pacing like Resident Evil games tend to have, I think taking that that big cut in performance is probably worth it.
Well, and again, remember, the PS5 and PS5 Pro use Zen too. So while they're easily capable of running any AAA game at a locked 60 pretty much, you know, there are some areas where a Digital Foundry found, if you're in the 120 hertz mode, yeah, I mean, it might drop to 90. It'll usually be above 100, but it might drop to 90. And so I do think that's another thing to think about. It's like you're deciding, do I double my frame rate for lower image quality? It's, do you get sometimes double, but usually 50% more and the 60 is locked anyway, so it feels smooth. I think it's a very easy decision which one you go with. But yeah, I don't know what much else there is to say here. I have talked about this exhaustively in the last live stream. Check that out if you want to hear me talk about it a lot. I talked with Colin Moriarty on Sacred Symbols Plus recently about this a decent amount. I don't have much to say about it besides it looks very good, and I think it proves the PS6 will be strong enough to make people happy. Like, that's a hot take of mine. I'm sorry, guys. Like, people are calling this a PS6 game. Like they were Death Stranding 2. Death Stranding 2, people were like, is this like a taste of what PS6 will do? Because of how amazing. Like, that's probably the other contender to best looking game is Death Stranding 2 versus RE9 right now on the console. And it's like, look what they did. The ray tracing is on. It's in 4K. I know they use PSSR to get to 4K, but it's really sharp. You can't see any jaggies, so who cares? All right. Again, to the people that were mad, the PS6 will only have double the raster at most or something versus PS5 Pro. Guys, that they don't need more than that. They double that, you're at 4K 120, and then you crank up like whatever it is from PS5 Pro, like 3 to 6 times more ray tracing. That will mean I don't know if that would be even more than double, because we don't know what the bottleneck is at 4K 60. Is it the ray tracing side or the raster side, right?
Yeah.
And then you have like, I don't know, 100 times better AI performance for some of this stuff, which can help actual real performance too. They use int 8 to generate PSSR2. If you go from like 300 tops to 1500 tops, you might get more of a performance boost using PSSR3 or something. So that, again, I think this proves it. Like, it's not about raster anymore. That's like arguing about, what would that be like I don't know. It'd be like arguing about the cell processor when the PS4 came out. The PS4 didn't increase CPU performance at all, and yet I think we all agree it runs games much better. Before it was with PS4, it was the RAM. They didn't think you needed more CPU. PS5, it wasn't that much about the RAM. It was more about a massively more powerful CPU. Next gen, it's about ray tracing, AI performance, and it will still have more raster and a much faster CPU. It's just, that's what's going to matter. And I think this game proves it.
Yeah.
Joe Brightson, this generation was off to a slow start due to the pandemic and then poor decisions by Sony to dump money into failed life service projects. Herman Hulst. That decision robbed us of an entire Naughty Dog dev cycle. Ugh, yep. Not to mention closing Bluepoint. Asha Sharma seems disingenuous at best as well to me. We'll see. Give her a chance. This next Xbox is going to become like their Surface products. Well, again, give them a chance. Price you can't buy or don't meaningful. Do you think it's possible for Sony to return to good stewardship of their studios, or is Herman Hulst too out of touch with the economy? Do you think Xbox will price out the majority of users? 2027 isn't too soon for new consoles either, I don't think. Do you think there will be even more people who wait to price and an extended cross-gen period? So you're asking a million questions, Job. I mean, look, yes, don't you agree with, I imagine you'll agree with this. Let's see what happens before we say Sony's stupid or Microsoft's stupid. I mean, I think there's a lot of evidence they're going to AI the crap out of the Xbox, and that's going to piss people off. But ultimately, let's see what they end up doing. That's what I would say about Xbox. When it comes to PlayStation, hopefully they learn from their mistakes. And I think at least Herman Hulst has recently said he's letting them do whatever they want again, within reason. Still giving them pointers like, we don't think that would do very well. And let's just see what they announce in a year and a half from now, because maybe they will come out and they'll have all of these PS3 remasters with ray tracing, PS ray tracing remix, and maybe they'll also have, I don't know what games would be ready by then. I think like that might be timed well with like a new Horizon or something. Maybe they'll have a new Horizon and they'll have some surprise new game from Software. And they'll have something out, like maybe they will have a bunch of launch exclusives, and maybe Media Molecule will actually make a game.
I doubt that, but
yeah, I wouldn't. Again, I'm not pricing money on any of these. It's just, if they price it right, like it's $650 without a disc drive, it has decent supply and it has like 5 big exclusives, and they also announced a bunch of new features they're coming, and they're like, by the way, here's the handheld. I think it will do really well, but it's too soon to know if they will do that. But they're acting like they've learned from their mistakes this past week to me.
I mean, I really hope they are. Like, to the question, like, do I think it's too late for Sony to return to good stewardship? I mean, no. Like, no. Bluepoint is like the big casualty of this, which sucks. And I think the other thing you'll see is like there's going to be a weird period with conspicuously long dev cycles from Sony. And I mean, we're clearly in the middle of that right now. Like, why is every dev like taking 6 years to release a game? I get the dev
besides Resident Evil.
I mean Sony specifically.
Oh yeah, sure.
And I get that dev cycles are taking longer now in this day and age, but like, can we even get that down to like 3 to 4 years? Like, I think that's possible. And yeah, I think we can see a return to Sony, and like the PS5 is just going to be a kind of awkward console generation. And And I don't know, I don't know if Herman Hulst will remain at the head of PlayStation, or what is he the head of at this point? Because they keep changing the names of
the
things.
names. Yeah, I don't know. He's the head of their gaming software choices, basically, right? I mean,
yeah, and with Microsoft, like the Xbox turning into like going the way of like the Surface. I mean,
Xbox Alexa.
I could see that be kind of happening where like the Xbox just becomes one of the entry points into their Windows ecosystem. Like, sure, I kind of think that's the intent of what the next Xbox is. Like
we'll get to that in the next story. Let's remember that.
Yeah, I know. And will they price out the majority of their users? I guess I don't know.
I don't know.
I don't know what it will end up costing yet. Like, what does price out the majority of their users? One thing I will say about that is like, I do think the PS5 and Series X, like starting in 2020, and I think it was just a lot of anger over, or maybe not anger, frustration is probably the better word, over the fact lack of availability and things just kind of sucking back in 2020. I think people got really frustrated and called everything anti-consumer, and also that came at the same time where a lot of people were just fine with like the performance you got in 1080p with a PS4, where like I don't know if it's like who's to blame here, like will they be priced out? I mean, I think a lot of people are just kind of okay with like for the time relatively weak devices these days, and
relative to the strongest ones, not relative to what we used to have.
Yeah. And yeah, I think like it might take some convincing, like to push people to really want to get a new device in this day and age. Maybe that means like new form factor, like a handheld, like we've been talking about with the PS6 for forever, or maybe it's just like, I don't know, some killer new app, or maybe it's just like, all right, we're cutting it off. Above. Yeah, and like we're actually making exclusives exclusive to the current generation, or the new generation again, where unlike what we had with this gen, where there was just this, I mean, torturous period we're still kind of in, where like they still feel the need to release everything on the previous gen.
Mm-hmm. Well, and that's where I don't think I'm going to make the argument for how PS6 would turn out excellently, right? I think, and it's what I made to Colin on Sacred Symbols like a week ago. I'm not going to make the negative one, because I don't think I could come up with 100 ways they fucked this up. I mean, I can't prove a negative. Like who knows what they could do to screw things, So let me just focus on a picture I can paint on how it would go well. Right now, you have Sony saying, or rumors from Jason Schreier, who is a well-respected journalist with a fantastic track record, saying that he's hearing they're going to move away from publishing games on PC as often, that they're going to move more towards exclusives. That's good evidence that they are changing their strategy fundamentally. You have Herman Hulst openly saying they screwed up with live services. Am I mad at him for killing Bluepoint? Yes. I will admit, though, at least he's saying they screwed up, and I think when you put these things together, it's easy to see a situation where Sony, whoever goes on stage next year, like shows off the PS6, says this is the PlayStation 6, $649 or $599, maybe $549 if RAM prices go down faster than we think. And again, to the people that would argue that's impossible, I'm not including the disk drives. So this is really an $80 price increase from the existing PS5 base. And this thing uses less energy than the PS5 does. It's going to use the same size die. It's probably going to be just 30 or 40 gigs of RAM. Look, Nvidia is making 9 gigabyte 5050s. That tells you the RAM situation might not be as bad as you would think it will be in a year from now. Like maybe they managed to do that. They're just like, they blow everyone away because everyone's expecting this to be like $1,000 now. And they're like, PS6, let's say $549, and then they go, and this is Elden Ring 2, and here's a new exclusive from Kojima, and here's Media Molecules exclusive, and also we have the new Ray Tracing Remix initiative where Nix's will be remastering a new game from PS3 or PS2 or PS1, every 6 months we will drop a $40 last gen game or like a $70 bundle of all 3 kill zones. And you're just going to keep seeing these. You know what? Because we can now use ray tracing, because this thing is so much faster than the PS5 at it, it's actually going to look better than some PS5 native AAA games. Like us taking Killzone 3, adding path tracing or whatever, and then having it output at 4K. Guess what? It actually looks better than Shadowfall.
Yeah, I mean, or it will look, I guess, depending on how they how they like remake or remaster it, like, because it might be like this game with like insanely good lighting but like kind of weirdly low polygon counts or whatever, but it'll still look good, I guess, because low polygon counts
they were still enormously high for the time because of the cell processor. But and then they go, and by the way, we're not going to say that we're never going to bring games to PC. You should expect us to bring games to PC, but you shouldn't expect every game to be. So if you're waiting to get this because you think it will come to PC, you should probably assume it won't moving forward. And they just show off a bunch of exclusives. And then they're like, all of these will also run. And then someone walks out with a handheld on this. And there's a whole other trailer for the handheld. And they're like, it's $499. PlayStation, play the way you want to play. And they're like, here's our family of consoles. They're all reasonably priced. And here's all these games. Like, right, I'm sorry, that's going to sell out instantly. Like this can be done right. There's so much pessimism right now. And I can paint a picture of how Xbox Magnus can be done right as well. Maybe I will in the next story. But like, yes, they might it all up. But I can paint a picture where it goes well. I mean, consider too, like if they're done with PS4 and they're like, hey, there's no way around it. The PS5 even doesn't really have enough RAM, ray tracing performance, nor the AI capabilities, like at all. Like I think it has like 20 tops that are emulated or something silly, like versus 300 in the Pro or 1500 with a 9070 XT, where they might go, yeah, none of these games are going on there. And because they're built from the ground up for ray tracing, it actually takes them less time to make the game because they don't have to do all this pre-break. So maybe dev cycles come down a little bit if they're exclusives. Again, I know I'm going on here forever, but it's like, think about this. There's many reasons why they might move away from going acting like a third-party publisher, but one reason might be the PS6 and Xbox Magnus too will be so good at ray tracing when it comes out that if you don't have at least a 3090, you're not even playing these games. And they might say, there's no point in us publishing these because we want dev cycles to come down. We want them to not have to waste as much time doing pre-baked lighting, which means they require ray tracing, which means most PC gamers can't play this. And we'll wait until, the 6050 is as powerful as a PS5 Pro, and then maybe we'll port it to PC. Like that also could suggest that's why they're going with more exclusives, is they want to bring down dev times. And it's a lot easier to make the game quicker if you only do ray tracing and don't worry about other platforms. So there's a world where I think this might be a home run. I just painted it. Will they do all of those things? Is this all true? We'll have to see.
Yeah, the one thing I would say though that would, I guess we're getting a little bit into the realm of like rumors here. Sure. I think, but like the idea of they're going to like close off the or go back to like a more exclusive model. The one thing that would make me nervous about, like I'm not sure about this, but like, do you completely shut off and make your first parties like an completely exclusive ecosystem again, or do you do what they've been doing? Like or do you bring everything basically to PC in like, I don't know, 6 months to like 2 years is generally seems to be the cadence.
If I was in charge over there would be no rule. There would just be not a push to make sure it's on PC, and we'll do it when we think it makes sense. But we don't expect it will make sense for a lot of games because of these limitations that are in like a lot of people's PCs compared to this console.
But the thing for me that would make me nervous about that approach is I could really see something like that backfiring, where it's like 25% of our games or something going forward. I'm not saying that's like a hard rule, but like, let's just say like, I don't know, a quarter to a third of games end up coming to PC in the future. I could really see that backfiring versus just saying, fuck it, we don't put games on PC anymore, really.
You think they should say it firmly so people know?
Yeah, because like if you just kind of randomly, sporadically bring certain games to PC, I could see that frustrating people a lot more than just saying we only make exclusives now, because then there's no expectation of what they're going to be doing for the future, unless they like straight up just like have this as an announcement, like these are going to be timed exclusives on the PS6 and these ones aren't, like when they're announced. Because like like being wishy-washy with like, ooh, we don't know what's going to come to PC or not, will cause a lot of negative, would cause, I should say, a lot of negative press, I think.
Yeah, there's something I need to bring up here too. Colin talked about this a lot on, I don't know if it was the last Sacred Symbols or the one before. I guess it would be the one before the last one probably when I listened to it. I distinctly remember because I was driving to pick up my car from being repaired when I listened to it. But apparently there's a thing going on here where like, I don't remember the number, but it's public. Like Sony said they made like 1.5 billion off of PC in the last year. I think PlayStation made 32 billion total. So Sony might be sitting here and going, what the hell is the point of bothering with PC?
I'm surprised.
Helldivers 2 was most of that, by the way. And why? I'll answer you. Because it launched on the same day on PC. So it was part of the initial hype cycle. And maybe Sony is realizing, hey, this system where like we sell 10 million copies of Horizon on PlayStation, and then a year later it launches to PC. Most of the people that really wanted to play it already got it. We're after the hype cycle. And so it's just not part of the conversation. Everyone's now talking about Resident Evil 9, not Spider-Man 2 or whatever, or Death Stranding 2 would be the better example. Like it actually hurts us if it's not day one because it's outside of the conversation. And then we're only selling, like I think there are Days Gone, like massively beat expectations. Maybe they're like, yeah, but it didn't hold up. It didn't keep happening. Like we're not beating expectations anymore. It's only selling 500,000, 1 million copies. And it's like, it's a waste of Nix's time to port this, that we should actually have them port PS3 games now. Like this is, and so I think there's a world where they're looking at that slowdown in PC sales of PlayStation games. And then they're also going, also next gen is going to be the ray tracing gen. And that might be a headache and a hell to make it work well on PC. Also, we're tired of devs taking forever to finish their games. Only worry about getting it out on PlayStation. So you could see all these things coming together, and then that's why they're doing this. And the one thing I wanted to add too is about your point, because I kind of talked around it, like of they need to be firm about if these games are coming to play PC or not. I think it disproportionately hurts sales in the state they're in. I think I agree with you, because if they said no PlayStation game will come to PC until a year or two, like 2 years after, or if they said it's just never coming, that might be better than never saying it. Because all the time on Reddit, Moore's Law is Dead Discord, some fans of Moore's Law is Dead, YouTube comments, I see people say, oh, I'm not going to get Death Stranding 2 on PlayStation. I don't want to buy a PlayStation. I'm just going to wait for it to come to PC. And they'll say PlayStation doesn't have exclusives anymore. And it's like, actually, I can name like 30 games that aren't on PC yet.
Yeah.
They will be eventually, maybe, but like half of the time it's a 2-year delay, a 1.5 year delay. And by the time you said you were going to get it, you actually didn't. So you really did miss out by not owning a PlayStation. But it doesn't feel like they did. And I think people all too often act like all of their PlayStation games are on PC when they're not on it yet, and they actually are kind of missing out. And I think, maybe it would behoove Sony to not just screw around here, just say it
completely, or go to a mixed approach and just do, if it's going to come to PC, like do a day and date approach, or just announce it at the time what the delay is going to be, or what.
I mean, a way to do it where you hype up your own console, even if it's partially bullshit in a way, is they could just say, hey, don't expect this generation to have as many exclusives come to PC, because we believe the they'll say, you could have a graphic. You could, like Mark Cerny could come on stage and say, the PlayStation 6 is up to 10 or even in some rare cases 15 times faster at ray tracing than the PS5. In our analysis, the average gaming PC is actually 10, 20, 30% faster. In this scenario, That's a 10x gulf. We don't think most devs are going to bother to port mini games to PC for years. Maybe you just say it that way to hype up the console and like make it clear of like, don't expect it. But we're never going to say never. Like, there's probably a way to do it, but they need to make it sound like it's not going to happen anymore so that people don't go, who knows? I'll just wait and find out.
Yeah.
Falto writes in, how true is it that Sony is considering no longer porting their games to PC? I think this is probably a bad move considering it's not as if the PS5 is lacking in sales. It has about 90 million lifetime sales ready. So even if the PC sales are lower than the console counterpart, I can't imagine them being so bad. You can. It's not like they're not making money, but again, apparently like it's maybe 5 to 5% of the money they make off of a game, off of sales of a game is on the PC versions.
Yeah, maybe that's more headache than it's worth, too.
That's starting to become a rounding error, especially, hear me out, if the game sells on PlayStation, 100% cut. Game sells on Steam, 30% of the profits go to Steam. So you also have to remove 30% from that 5% they made because maybe they would have actually gotten a PlayStation. So what, we're making 2% extra money to make our games work on everything?
Yeah, no. Maybe it's not worth it.
Like that's what they're probably thinking about it. In terms of like, is this true or not? I think we've talked about it enough that I've at least put out plenty of supporting arguments for why this might be likely that have nothing to do with even just business. It might be a hardware level reason. They don't want to bother trying to make sure, The Last of Us Part 3 runs on a 2060. Mr. Tiger writes in, is Sony's choice to stop selling certain games on PC and introducing dynamic pricing a coincidence? Many are posting screenshots of $5 to $10 Euro, British pound range differences when signed in versus not. Have you looked into this? Is this true?
Yeah, there's, I guess I don't quite understand how it's working, but it seems like based on region, they're like experimenting with dynamic pricing. They haven't announced it yet.
Is it between regions or is it literally just based on your account?
I think it's between regions but
with inflation, too often I would have to look. The US dollar went like this and then like this just now, and the euro.
I don't know. I think I think we need to see how the story develops. Like, I wouldn't be a huge fan of dynamic pricing, I guess. And
no, like what if they're like, well, we know Tom's in the truly dystopic world. Tom's a huge fan of Elden Ring, so Elden Ring 2 costs more for Tom.
Well, from what
that's what I would worry about.
It looks like it's all discounts, but I'm not sure exactly how it's supposed to work, and it seems speculative to me at this point. But
Tom's never going to buy Cyberpunk. It's $1 for Tom, but not for Dan. Like that would suck if they did stuff like that.
I might buy Cyberpunk for $1. I might.
All right. Well, maybe they offer it to you as well. But yeah. So you're not sure this is exactly what some people think.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, we'll move on and cover it if like a big report comes out confirming it, or I don't know. Honestly, let me write that down. Ask sources about dynamic pricing. Because if I certainly could get someone at Sony or next to Sony to confirm that to me, that would be a story. All right. Speaking of stories, we need to move on to the sixth one here. This piece of content is brought to you by the Minis Forum AI X1 Pro 470, a mini PC that comes with the latest AMD Gorgon point AI 9 470 APU with 890M graphics. It also has an Oculink eGPU port, so you can add a dedicated GPU, a room for user upgradable RAM to 128 gigabytes, and it actually has 3 NVMe slots inside, which is really cool and quite rare for a mini PC. Besides that, it also has built-in audio and a fingerprint Wi-Fi 7, 2.5 gigabit Ethernet, Bluetooth 5.4, support for 4 displays. I mean, it's a fully featured, really mini workstation. And much like Minis Forum's other products, I stand by its quality. Really, the only caveat I would say there is during these RAM shortages, they ship it with 32 gigabytes while keeping it at about the same price as the previous gen AI 9 370 model, but they did so by having it come with a single 32 gigabyte module. Now, it's fine, it's DDR5 5600, but just know that they cut a corner there so they can keep prices down now, so that if you get a good deal on another RAM module or maybe have one from some old laptop, you can add that to the mini PC, get dual channel memory and the full performance, which is to say slightly above the previous Gen 1, as you can see on screen here, and avoid having lower performance while saving money. So out of the box, it still works great. It's super snappy, but it isn't that great at gaming until you add another RAM module. But at least they did something to try to make it so that you can avoid the higher costs right now and have more choice in how you get to the amount of RAM and bandwidth you want. If you're interested in this product, please check out the link in the description. Even just clicking on that link helps the channel a ton, but also you can use offer code BROKENSILICON to save $30 on it as well. Whether that is the model that comes with a single RAM module or the, of course, in today's market, much cheaper bare bones edition. So yeah, support Moore's Law is Dead by checking out Minis Forum products today. Microsoft confirms Project Helix is an expensive hybrid next-gen Xbox. Quoting from Xbox CEO Asha Sharma, Project Helix, the codename for our next-generation console, Project Helix will lead in performance and play Xbox and PC games. I look forward to chatting about this more with partners and studios at my first GDC next week. So yes, I'm sure more information will come out about this then. But yeah, not to be outshone by Sony and their release of further fruits of Project Amethyst, the fresh new Xbox CEO announced their own project, Helix. Well, Sony might make a hybrid console, meaning a possible dockable handheld. Xbox seems to aim for a different kind of a hybrid between a console and a PC. In other words, what we wanted the Xbox Series S to be from the beginning, frankly. Of course, with Magnus, there is only the expensive high-end console, not the cheap box anyone can afford, at least from what we're hearing so far. Well, Helix, or I don't know of anyone working on a cheaper version yet. Well, Helix will still be a console. It playing PC games certainly gives validity to our suggestion of Magnus as Xbox hardware's swan song at this point. We really don't expect much more, but let's see here. But if it is fit to be Microsoft's console swan song, they better go out on a high note. Sorry about technical difficulties there at the end. So yeah, there's not much to say except that she directly says they think it's going to be stronger than the PS6 and it will run PC games. So now that's not a rumor anymore.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure how much I have to say about this other than that, like, this is what I want the Xbox to be. I think, I think this is the best version of what the Xbox could be. Like, it's a hybrid console. Like you said, I've wanted a hybrid console since the Series X. I mean, maybe even before then. Like, hell, maybe I would have even bought a Series X at one point, or the Xbox One if it were actually a hybrid console rather than whatever the hell they've been doing for the past 15 years now. But
you mean running a version of Windows without having any of the benefits of running Windows? Yeah, really interesting idea.
So, I mean, I'm glad to see this is what Helix is. Other than that, like, I feel like we've talked about this. Like, this is like, I think Xbox is becoming a brand instead of like a hardware thing. And yeah, this is like you said, their swan song is hardware. This is their pivot into Xbox just becoming the gaming brand for Microsoft and Windows.
And again, I talked about this for a long time in the last live stream. You know, also check out the Xbox Magnus full leak that I put out that include mock-ups, but based on, no, not mock-ups. It is really just renders. I've actually seen the designs and schematics. So renders of what the dies look like. Like, check out my Xbox Magnus leak. And then, of course, you can hear dozens of minutes of me talking about what I think about it in Project Helix in the last live stream. But besides that, I don't think there's much to say. I mean, you teased out some things earlier, like about pricing. I think if you, and I say this in the last live stream, like, well, if they were targeting $550 for AT2, the GPU version for desktop, where they put an output die with the AT2, GPU die, whereas Magnus will add a CPU die with it. That was going to be $550. It's like, all right, add $100 for the CPU. All right, so now we're to $650. Actually, a graphics card is pretty expensive cooling and stuff on it already. Okay, so add like $100 for the SSD, maybe probably less because they buy that in bulk. $200 for RAM, hopefully by then. And again, guys, even with the prices on Newegg, that's not what these guys are going to pay. They're going to pay a fraction of that.
Yeah.
That's inflated consumer pricing right now. I mean, yeah, you're getting up to like what, like 850. I think they could break even maybe at 900. Now, I don't think they will sell it at cost. I think they will at least have a 10% profit margin. But I don't think people understand, like, AMD tends to get to 20 to maybe 50, 60% margins. Nvidia's going for like 100% margins on their graphics cards. So if Microsoft took a modest, nay, I say 10, PC gaming renaissance level of margin off of it, where it was like 10 to 30%, I think they could pull off $999, and well, that's a lot for a console.
If it runs Windows,
I think Asus is selling RTX 4070 pre-builts for frickin' $2,000. So I think at $1,000 it could be compelling, and it could actually put some pressure on Sony. This thing will probably be at least 20% faster, if not 30% or more than the PS6. They could say, I mean, look, yeah, it does 4K 120, but at $600, you pay 50% more. Ours does 4K 240 if you turn down a couple settings. Like, there's an argument to be made there. I do think they would still put some pressure on Sony, actually, if they nail it.
Yeah,
they just go out and say TV instead of TV. They say Copilot, and then they charge $1,500. No, I don't think that's going to do great. Like, we'll just have to see what they do.
Yeah, I mean, if they went for something like $1,500, this is just, we don't care about the Xbox anymore. I think that's what that would signal. Like, this is Microsoft's like gaming, like in-house gaming PC, more or less than anything. And I just don't think it would sell in super high volume. Maybe it wouldn't sell terribly, but
one more thing I want to address here is the performance gap between Xbox Magnus and PS6. I was tired, as usual. I've been tired for most of this year already. I'll be honest with you. When I was doing the live stream, and I didn't zero in on like how much the performance difference would be, and I saw some people, because I threw around a bunch of numbers. I'm like, maybe it's 50, maybe it's 20%. And I saw some people grab on to some of the numbers I said and go, I think you're underestimating how much faster Magnus will be than PS6 Canis. Like, it's like going to be massive. It's going to be insane. And I just want to make sure people level set expectations, though. Will it be faster? At least on paper, yes. But guys, the Xbox Series X had 52 compute units. The PS5 had 36. Okay.
Yeah.
So 52 divided by 36 is a 44% difference in compute units. And yet the PS5 ended up outperforming it on average. Okay. Well, so 68 compute units in Magnus divided by like 52 to 54. Let's just call it 52. Let's give Xbox the advantage.
Be smaller.
31%.
Yeah.
The difference is less than last gen, guys. And even before, there was 320-bit, or it should have been, versus 256-bit. That's 25% more. Now it's 192-bit instead of 160-bit. That's 20%. So the bandwidth difference and the compute difference might be smaller than last gen, and Sony won last gen in performance. So again, let's not let this get away from us here and assume we know everything yet. A lot of things could change. What if Microsoft pulls a stupid like they did last gen and they only clock RDNA? They only clocked RDNA 2 at 1.8 gigahertz. What the hell are we? Was this Vega? And Sony went for pretty much typical RDNA 2 clock speeds.
Yeah.
Could have gone higher, actually. Well, we'll see. I've seen different things simulated in some documents for the PS6. If they go to 3.2, 3.5 gigahertz, not saying that it will necessarily get there with RDNA 5, but then it's like, well, maybe they actually end up matching Magnus.
Yeah.
But what if they don't? I've seen simulations where they're only 2.5 gigahertz. What if Magnus not only has 31% more compute units? What if they're at like 3.4 gigahertz and Sony's at 2.5? Well, yeah, now we're at a massive difference. So they're still closer on paper, the dies themselves, the APUs themselves, than they were last gen. So there is still a world where Sony wins in performance.
Yeah,
there actually is. I don't think they will, though, and I don't think Microsoft's going to make the stupid decisions like split memory like they did last time. So I think Microsoft will probably end up 30% faster. Maybe 40 at most, but it could just be 20, and that won't really be noticeable.
Yeah, and we'll see though. Microsoft isn't new to making dumb hardware decisions, so who knows?
Who knows? We'll see. And who knows? Maybe if Sony's done it before with the PS3. But who knows? I'm a little concerned. I'm like, if they go above 3 gigahertz, this thing's gonna fly. If they limit it to the same clock speeds as last gen, I'm gonna go, what are you even using 3 nanometer for, my dude? Like, why bother? Salty Internet Pirate writes in, given the next Xbox code name and branding, would you bet anything against the final product name being Xbox Evolution? That could work, but I actually kind of like the name Xbox Helix.
Yeah,
it's a cool sounding word. It sounds advanced.
I like Helix more than Evolution too, I think. Although I guess that's almost a callback to the 360, so maybe they'll go with it.
Evolution or Helix.
Well, I guess both kind of could be construed as
Helix.
Yeah. They could
actually like pander to longtime Xbox fans and like do a little Helix spin that looks a lot like the 360. I would actually be for that.
They could start out with like a DNA strand, or like a DNA thing, like the Xbox Helix, and then it like pivots up, and now you're looking down at the DNA strand, and it's the Xbox logo. Makes sense.
Hey, you're like Tom. If you argue with this, it makes sense. Shut up. You're like the way you just looked at me is like, shut up, nerd.
Shut up,
it does
Tom.
No, I agree. It does.
Look at photo 51 if you want to know what I'm referencing.
No, I don't, and I think it does make sense. All right, let me avoid getting bullied here by my little brother, apparently, and move on to the final story, which is story number 7. Nintendo and FedEx sue U.S. government for a refund of Trump's illegal tariffs. Quoting from The Verge, Nintendo of America is suing the U.S. government over President Trump's tariffs and is demanding a prompt refund with interest, of any duties that it has paid, according to a complaint filed in the U.S. Court of International Trade. FedEx has also filed a lawsuit in the U.S. Court of International Trade asking for a full refund of tariff payments. Just as we discussed in the last news episode, the U.S. government is facing a steep bill for Trump's illegal tariffs. It is not surprised that the famously litigious Nintendo is amongst the first to demand their pound of flesh back with interest. Sadly, it is unlikely refunds trickle down to us, the consumers. But hey, everyone got screwed. The companies who, even if they get their money back, had to rework their processes for cash flows and entire supply chains. The government, who now likely has to return tens of billions of money it stole. And ultimately us, who have been having to pay more money recently and will have to pay a lot more soon. I just saw reports coming out of the gas prices skyrocketing today specifically. As we have said from the start, then, Trump's tariffs are just an objectively horrible, stupid idea, and it will continue to harm everyone in new, fun, and interesting ways for years to come. After all, some of the tariffs are still being litigated, and Trump wants to replace those that were struck down with a different legal reasoning. Yet more fun times are ahead for us. And again, this new 15% tariff thing, it's gonna cause a supply shock no matter what that we will feel in a few months, just like we felt the other one.
Yeah.
Other ones.
Yeah. I don't know how much more to say about this tariff other than like, yay, more fun uncertainty on pricing, more confusion, and yeah, I get why the US government's being sued.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's this type of crap, by the way, that is, again, I think more so what would cause the Steam machine to be delayed. It's not, if they can get the RAM and have a stable supply chain, it's just a couple of the components that are massively increasing price. Yeah, I know precious metals are up too, but that's like another $10-20. It's like, take my bomb estimate of like whatever it was. I don't remember off the top of my head, like $430 for the Steam machine, whatever. Double the price of RAM, add $100, add $200. Now it's $630, $650. That still might be competitive in this market. But if they can't be sure they'll be able to get the RAM in a steady supply, which way it will come in, what it will cost, what they have to pay to import it, that causes far more headaches.
Mm-hmm.
All righty, let us now move on from these stories to the final wrap-up. We've quite a few wrap-up stories here. These are, of course, the stories that we think deserve mention, but maybe not a full conversation. Yes, this was funny. 8 compute unit Gorgon point confirmed for AM5. So I actually believe video cards leaked a picture. Then I got access to a full promotional video for Gorgon point coming to AM5 and leaked that on Twitter. last week. And then like the next day or 2 days later, they were like, yes, 8 cores and 8 compute units. And it's like, well, no one told me what the specs were, guys. I didn't promise you the specs. And a lot, I guess I'm not surprised, but there's a lot of people that are surprised by this that I think shouldn't be, because I keep trying to make this clear to people. There are some games where if Strix or Gorgon Point have DDR5 even 5600, they fall dangerously close to the performance of Hot Point or Meteor Lake. In my testing, you need at least DDR5 7500 to get to that 30% more performance than Hot Point. And in Gorgon Point, I have a system here I've tested. Yeah, it frequently runs at like 3.1 gigahertz on the GPU stock. Like, it is faster, but I think it needs that DDR5 8533 to get that full, 10% boost or 10 to 20% boost over Strix Point. And so think about it. RAM is really expensive right now, and you need at least DDR5 like 6400 to start really getting the most out of 16 compute units of RDNA 3.5. So like, I think that 8 compute unit model is launching because that will be faster than it will be. I think it will be. It will be faster than like Phoenix and Hawk Point. But anything else, it needs more bandwidth. And I just don't know that they're going to bother until like Zen 6 is out. And then you can hopefully by then get okay priced DDR5 8000 kits, right? Once you get DDR5 8000, 9000 kits, that's when you sell Medusa Point, maybe Medusa Halo Mini on desktop. But until you get those speeds from normal DDR5 and you can get them for reasonable prices, this is why, guys, this is why it's 8 compute units.
Yeah. So
it didn't honestly surprise me that much, and I just thought it would be important to explain why here. So this was an interesting one. Apparently, Bluepoint pitched to From Software making a Bloodborne remake, and
Miyazaki. Jesus,
Miyazaki, not Shuei. Miyazaki said no. Even a remake, he wants to be in charge of it because of how much he cares about Bloodborne. And so it seems like, to be fair to Bluepoint and fair to Herman Hulst, there was some point where they were like, okay, fine, if you're not doing a live service game, let's remake Bloodborne. And then From Software said no, and Bluepoint was killed off. That does seem to be part of the picture.
And if that's the case, then do your remake or your remaster. Like, I don't know. I mean, maybe Demon Souls is to Miyazaki like artistically less important or whatever than Bloodborne for him, but like they did a good job shepherding Demon Souls with that remake. So
it's weird that he said no, if this is true. Yeah, and it's unfortunate. Still doesn't mean that it was okay to kill Bluepoint, in my opinion, though, to be clear.
Yeah.
IFS manager leaves for Qualcomm. Apparently that was a pretty big surprise to some people, just worth mentioning. Also, Arrow Lake refresh, the Intel 270K just appeared in some HP marketing. So yes, Arrow Lake refresh is coming in a month or something. Intel sued over sale to U.S. government by shareholders. Again, more chaos from the current U.S. government. Nvidia confirms GeForce supply issues. How nice of them. Nvidia driver woes continue. So I've been pretty much fine, using my 4090 recently. But I got to say, this is a lot of people shared this, and they're like, it's pretty bad. Like, Nvidia had to pull drivers because of how many issues they're having.
Yeah, and haven't they put out like a couple hot fixes or something within like a week or something like that? Like, yeah, that's not good.
I'm going to say it again, guys. Like, AMD makes better GPU drivers. Like, they do. They're more stable. They're easier to use. The menus work better. Yes, there's DLSS 4.5. But if we're comparing RDNA 4, not RDNA 3, because they don't support FSR 4 on it, but if we're comparing RDNA 4 to Blackwell, ray tracing per raster is pretty close. The drivers are more stable on AMD, and I think it's just price performance. I stand by it. I don't think DLSS 4.5 means you go with NVIDIA. You pay 30% more for NVIDIA because you would be paying to have worse drivers, worse driver menus. You lose out on some features like Radeon Chill. Like an FSR 4
Yeah, they're
is
getting
good.
closer to parity as time goes on.
DLSS 4.5 is better, but I just don't forget like how many stability problems there have been recently with Nvidia. Like it really does. At least the older I get, the more I want is just stability.
Yeah,
It matters quite a bit to me.
No.
Oh no, I accidentally hit the infinite thing. Sorry. A couple Jensen drops for everybody. Nvidia confirms they are done with OpenAI and Anthropic investments after their recent one, and they announced like a $30 billion one, not a $100 billion one. That's actually
good.
Maybe pretty big news there.
I don't know. Yeah, I'm hoping to see the fun passing money in a circle to each other thing end at a certain point. But
yeah, and then so this one I actually had someone explain it to me. I believe the MS mad at people saying Microslop. I believe there was like a Microsoft, I don't know if it was a Slack or Discord server or community forum, and people just kept complaining and using the word Microslop. So then they banned the use of the word Microslop.
Good.
And then people freaked out, and then they shut down the server.
Fun.
Oh, God, Microsoft. All right, that is the wrap-ups. Let us now get to the finer reader mails. And actually, this first one here is a voicemail.
Hello, Tom. Hope you're having a good loose ends. Just was a quick question. With Intel now being confirmed to have Titan Lake, which would use an Nvidia graphics slice or tile, I will say slice later on, so that's why. Do you think that they will build slices which can go together to be used in the different graphics cards for the dies? So, example, graphics dies with less than 64 SMs are made up of 16 SM slices, and graphics dies with more than 72 SMs are made up of 72 SM slices, and then have separate memory dies to attach on. Maybe it's a bit overly complicated, but just an idea I had.
So on paper, I don't see why you couldn't do stuff like this. And I don't think it would be as small as 16 SM. I mean, what I've seen in some documents for Titan Lake is that the tiny ones, budget APUs, that will still use Intel's old XE3 or 3 plus whatever stuff. And they're going to, let's remember, Nova Lake AX, I believe, is going to be, let me pull it up actually here, because I just leaked this. Yeah, right. Where is the diagram? Yeah, it goes up to 512 execution units on N2P. So that's a pretty big GPU tile compared to the existing ones they have now with 96. I mean, I think it's conceivable Nvidia wouldn't do 16 SMs, but maybe they're at 64, and they put 2 of those to make a desktop chip or something, especially once you get to 2 nanometer or smaller, because the reticle limit's going to be 400 millimeters squared, so they might have to do that. Is that possible? Yeah, it's possible. I will say, though, everything we continue to see out of Nvidia so far is everything is bespoke.
Yeah.
So I would say kind of 50-50 here, because you look at N1X, and that does use chiplets kind of, but they're not sharing that with anything else. So I still don't quite know if they're going to do that. But in a world where your limit is 400 millimeters squared, I could see a mega Halo die that has, like a 350 to 380 millimeter squared, 580 size die, and then they just put 2 of those together for this 6090. I think it's possible. But again, so far Nvidia continues to never do that, so I'm not going to bet money on that. Mr. Tiger writes in and says, is it fair to say when it comes to games that Sony didn't win, Microsoft just lost? Kind of.
Yeah.
Sony did have more. So, but in a world where there's even Xbox One's era where there's, Titanfall, what was the Crysis devs game? Rise, Son of Rome.
Oh, that,
I don't know if I should count that one. That one wasn't that good. But, in a world where they at least had as many Sunset Overdrive was one, wasn't it not? In a world where they had actually a couple exclusives a year, and some of them are sometimes big. Yeah, I think that would have been a little bit of an issue for Sony. You know, and that wouldn't have even been great. Like, remember, Xbox One got destroyed by the PS4. So it's partially true to say Sony didn't win. They just were competent enough to be good. You know, I still would say they were good, though. I will be honest. They were good, not great.
Yeah. I mean,
and Microsoft just fell apart.
This gen, I think that's fair to say, because Sony is also kind of fallen apart this gen with first parties. But I mean, I don't know. I think it's
there is
a bit
still
of both.
Death Stranding 2, and I think there are exclusives, guys.
And I would say prior gen, like it's a bit of both, I guess, because like I think Sony had pretty good output during the PS4 generation. Like after 2007 or 8, Sony had pretty good output for their first parties. And Microsoft just kind of fell apart at a certain point where like. I don't know. It just feels like they don't. I just don't understand what Microsoft is doing. They just can't make relevant games anymore.
Well, and even when they did, right? I don't know. Like Halo Infinite, I thought was good, and they just didn't support it. It's kind of insane, actually. All right, final one. Deuce Niner writes in, not Deuce Ninner. I say Ninner because there's a guy in your mom's house. My Ninner. But okay, so Deuce Niner. He says, do you have any details on the form factor of the PS6 Canis handheld? How hopeful should I be that it will be more compact than the current breed of handhelds? I recently saw an Xbox Ally at Best Buy, and I was shocked on the scale of Switch Lite to Legion Go. Where do you think it will land in size? I really don't know. I think there's no way around it. The market's indicating we're okay with being bigger than a PSP. So I think it will be at least as big as a Switch 2. Outside of that, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if it will be the same form factor, because I guess the design is frankly probably a little motivated out of laziness, but like I imagine something like the size of a Portal, like a PlayStation Portal or something like that.
I hope not. That thing looks so goofy to me.
Well, I mean in size. Like I hope they don't just duct tape a PS6 controller to a screen this time. But
well, if I pull up some internal docs, because I actually do have a diagram of the mobile one. I mean, LCD, there's no indications here of how big the screen is. All I can go off of is the fact that it's going to have 2 Zen 6 low power and 4 Zen 6C cores. And also, where didn't they say wattage here somewhere? Oh, here it is. I have on one doc, it says Canis and then in parentheses 15 watts. Okay. So that's not 25 or 30, you know. And how much, let's see, energy does Switch to pull docked? Because remember, that'd be in docked mode, probably the 15 watts, 18 to 19 watts. Yeah. So there is promise here. This thing is targeting Switch 2 power consumption at most, maybe even less than the Switch 2. And so, but at the same time, they're also showing haptics. They'll have all of the full features of the PS6 because it will just be a PS6. So my guess would be what they will do is something that looks a lot like a Switch 2, and I think hopefully has removable controllers, not to copy Nintendo, but just so you can replace the controllers if you get stick drift or something. I think you want that.
And just having like a docking thing for the DualSense 2 would make it convenient for like, you know, docking. Oh, if you just pull the things on and now it's a controller.
Yeah, I think it would make a lot of sense if what they do is effectively basically what the Switch 2 does. Maybe a little bit of a smaller screen, a little smaller form factor, but it's a little thicker for the controller handles is my guess is what they'll do. It'll almost be like a baby PS6 controller that you pull off and attach to a center thing. I don't know that for a fact that's happening, but I just think it's obvious. Like, don't break it if it's working. And what the Switch form factor that Nintendo stumbled upon or maybe brilliantly conceived, it worked. Everyone loves it, you know. I think even Lenovo copied it with the Legion Go. Like, I think that works. The Joy Me idea works. I just think they should. Do I have a controller here? You know, so what do I think it will look like? I think it will take this and then put this here. You put this phone here and just move this like that. There. Now imagine what is on both sides. So I think smaller probably than the PlayStation Portal, probably. something like this, and then you can slide these off. But I don't know. I think this is like a 7-inch screen. They'll probably go with 8-inch. So that you pretty much agree. Like probably something that's mostly the size of a Switch 2, but they make the handles a little more professional so you can game better. That'd be my guess.
I mean, yeah. I was imagining something probably that size. I don't think it's going to be the size of a Vita or a PSP.
No, and I think that ship has just sailed. The market has said they want the handhelds to be bigger, and ultimately, I think the Vita was the biggest you could get and still truly be very, very portable. Like it did fit, as they said, hey, it doesn't fit in your coin pocket. It fits in your back pocket, though, is what they would always brag about. And I think that was a worthy trade-off. But if you're not going to manage to make this the size of a Vita, well, then what's the next cutoff? It's make it a little more portable than a laptop. A little. Yeah. Like that's what you, like a small backpack or a carrying case.
Or a purse, because I wouldn't wear a purse.
Oh yeah, I just call it a bad guy. What are we? But anyways, though, yeah, that's what I think they would do. They will probably do, and because you don't want it to be if you're going to make it bigger than the Vita, you might as well make it as big as the Switch 2.
Mm-hmm.
Like, because the in between is for what? It's still not fitting in your pocket. But yeah, so that's what I think about that, and I am melting down because of how exhausted I am right now. I don't know. Any goofy things I can do here. I've got these Gunner Fallout gamer glasses, Dan.
Yeah, I don't know. It kind of makes you look like the Unabomber too. So.
It does. It does make you look like the Unabomber. But I don't know why. I just thought I'd throw these on quick because they make these Area 51 Fallout edition. Oh. I'm like, they didn't pay for an ad, but that might be fun to put on quickly. I'm not really a gamer glasses guy though, but they do look cool.
They help your eyes.
Is that the guy who wears these sounds like, Dan? They help your eyes?
Yeah, they help your eyes.
But if you like them, they do look pretty cool. All right, nice. Dan, I'm tired. So I got to get out of here. All right, everybody. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. Please remember to subscribe to Moore's Law Z on YouTube. That helps the algorithm a ton if you do that. Videos that get a lot of subscribes get recommended more. Like the video, share the video, comment down below. Give us high points on mobile. And then also check out recent videos. Like there's clearly a drop off like 2021 for some of the content. But then the new live stream is performing incredibly well for a live stream. And I think it's just because people didn't notice I had leaked PS6 specs. And so like people are writing a bunch of articles about that. But don't just watch that. Watch the Zen. I mean, guys, I paid someone to render pictures of Zen 7 based on how the dies actually look. Check out the Zen 7 leak. And also the 5090 Ti engineering sample leak. That one also went on the radar. So check out the other content from Moore's Law is Dead. I know the RAM is scarce, but the content and its quality could not be in more abundance on our YouTube channel. And then also subscribe to Broken Silicon, your podcast app of choice, and join us on Patreon. We just had a new die shrink come out. It was actually not with you, Dan. It was with a Moore's Law is Dead mod, who also does a ton of research into like just actually reading all of the emails that came out from that Xbox hack, for example. And he changed my thinking or evolved my thinking on a lot of things. It's like a bonus Broken Silicon on the Patreon right now, going through what we expect out of next gen consoles and what Asha Sharma, the new head of Xbox, is going to do with Xbox. So please join us on Patreon there. Otherwise, yeah. Any final words, Dan?
I don't think so, Tom.
Well, as usual, everybody, thank you for watching. Thank you for listening, and have a good rest of your week.
Bye.
This podcast was brought to you by the YouTube channel and website Moore's Law is Dead. Moore's Law is Dead and Broken Silicon are trademarks of their creator, Tom. That guy is me, and I am indeed the creator, editor, writer, and showrunner of Moore's Law is Dead podcasts, videos, articles, and other media. However, it's not just me. Moore's Law is Dead is a team, with Broken Silicon co-hosted by my brother Dan, audio editing by Gerard Cortez, renders being done by the industrial designer Jean-Philippe Clermont, and special assistance is also provided by Carmen Craw and Carrie Nosugad as well. Find all of our information at www.mooreslawsdead.com on the About/Support page page in the event you do want to hire me for consulting work, hire Gerard for audio work, hire Jean-Philippe for industrial design work, or you're interested in working with Carbon Cry or Carry No Sugata as well. You can also find our long-term sponsors on that page if you want to show them some love for putting food on our tables. Or you can also mail us some love. You can send letters or hardware donations to the following address: Moore's Law is Dead, P.O. Box 60632 in Nashville, Tennessee, zip code 37206. Although, to be honest, the best way to show Moore's Law is Dead some love is to support us on Patreon. Patrons are what makes Moore's Law is Dead content truly possible. Every month, and really every day, depending on who you're talking about, me, Gerard, Dan, and Jean-Philippe are working tirelessly to provide a steady stream of content that we could not keep doing unless we knew the work was possible without being reliant on sponsors dictating every little thing we put out. Don't get us wrong, we love our sponsors, but we love directly working for you, our fans, much more. If you have any extra money, even a couple free dollars a month, consider supporting us directly on Patreon. Those couple of monthly dollars will get you access to the exclusive podcast Die Shrink, voting on subjects of future podcast episodes, the ability to ask guest questions, and of course, access to the Moore's Law is Dead Discord full of like-minded people who I am sure would love to meet you. I am one of them. Additionally, higher tiers get access to early, ad-free episodes of Broken Silicon, the ability to ask questions in all Broken Silicon episodes and Loose Ends live streams ahead of the recording, and the entire back catalog of Moore's Law is Dead podcasts, in addition to having thanks in the credits of videos and podcasts depending on the tier, with other perks available as well. And hey, if you cannot afford to support us directly every month, please do share Moore's Law is Dead videos and podcasts with friends and family, and on social media and websites like Reddit, and give Broken Silicon a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts or your preferred podcast app of choice. All of this does really help us so much. But like I said, this podcast would not be possible without the patrons directly providing predictable and reliable support every month. And so now it is time to give a personal thanks to the greatest of the fans. The following supporters are at the 10 gigahertz or higher supported levels: Brad Medlin, Drita Full, Z Jits, Daniel D, Nicholas Buckner, Deke, Toka, Aaron Close, Jan Rauner, MJB1, Daniel High, GZ Ziggy, SNES Chalmers, Jerem Ferrier, Valka Malev, Jensen Wing, Sarcastro, Chris Rich, Compressed AI Blocks, Evan Dingle, Hal Buma, Shredbird, Semi Malas, Kristen Thenos, The Boss Haas, Jonathan, Tommy, Jake Dude 23, Jake Martin, Zlicky, Gamers Unite, Ian Clifford, Meat and Pork, Tim Robb, Winwang, Travis Gooding, Zutsu Taylor, Mads, Amiable Chief, Patty Cakes, Greg, Michael McGee, Stephen Coates, I Should, Mark Mitchell, James Anderson, Mark Raidmaker, Salty Internet Pirate, Henry Zhang, Wesley Sager, Cameron, Michelle Pell, Hexapumo, Matthew Cassells, Teak Autumn, Reginald Ari, Little Germany, Windstar, James I, Raider, Shay, Milton, Brett Jones, Chuck Glidden, Stephen Dick, Mac Daffy, Justin Bustle, Austin Haggerty, Joe Foot, Brian Scanlon, Brian Wright, Hardland, Slushbot, Dan M, 1988, Jansen Ankima, The Forbidden Juice, RB Racer, John Swin, Bing Bong 3, Solarize 80, Elbergun, Keekum, Sprutnik, Brian P, Cornster 671, Penta Winta, Omega Doge, Hugo Ander Kiwi, Mr. Tiger, Smash Axley, John Wick Boomstick, Penguins Love AI, Porcelain Oats, Karim Al Masri, Ryhill, Chi Bowles, AI Soldier, Manulis Redkusis, Kevin Kuntz, Bespoke, Jonathan Harris, Kylan, Reichel, Fred Berger, Kainush Kagani, Zabir Ahmed, Johnny Trance, RKO, Dominic Pesari, and of course, thank you to Sahara for the music.